Okay, I will call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they're distant 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, we're requesting you excuse yourself from the room. I'll introduce the members of the panel today. Seated at the table is Ms. Carrie Linklater, and via Zoom, we have Ms. Marla Billingshurst, the secretary for my name is Stu McPherson. I'll be chairing the hearing today. The secretary for today's hearing is Ms. Belen Rojo, and representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department is Mr. Arka Darkanov. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Please be advised comparisons of assessments of property are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council, and it's independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in, then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they so wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. Just as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. The use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair. If you do have a cell phone, please put that on silent. And Ms. Secretary, I'll have you swear the parties in, please.
Please state your full name. You are from the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good afternoon, Mr. Neufeld. You're here representing the owners of 3 office properties today, and it's the amount of assessed value only that we're dealing with. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So we'll just hear them as they're listed on the docket today. So the first property we'll deal with is 1967 Henderson Highway. So when you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
File number 20344, roll number 0400-725-5815, 1967 Henderson Highway, owners 6172874 Manitoba Limited. Assessment roll year 2021, reference date April 1st, 2018. Assessed value $1,719,000. Subject property is an office building, standalone office building, 2-story building, 2016, with land area of 12,500 square feet and plan area of 3,265 square feet. Leasable area 6,295 square feet. My recommendation is to confirm the assessed value of $1,719,000. On page 2, we see a street view and the aerial view of subject property. It's a two-story building. With an apartment building right behind it. Building is occupied by Irvin Homes and it's owner occupied. Page 3, there's some basic information. There was a 2015 $1 consideration sale for empty lot with a sworn value of $286,955. Income breakdown is on page 4. So the two premises, one is at 4,775 square feet and another is at 1,520 square feet, totaling 6,295 square feet, with potential rate of $124,223. And vacancy loss at 5.5%. Expenses at 2%, shortfall rate at $7, and overall capitalization rate at 6.55%. Arrives at calculated net income of $1,718,000. Page 5 provides comparable rent comparables. Over here we have I tried to find buildings that are similar in size to subject property, and comparable 7 and 8 are actually would be closer to the subject property location, subject property neighborhood. That is 2536 Main Street and 897 Henderson Highway. So on average, the rent is $19.17. Page 6 again provides an income value summary. So page 7 provides City of Winnipeg capitalization rates. We are in here. We are looking at office suburban B section at where cap rates at 5.55 and 9.05%. Page 8 provides municipal assessment act excerpts. And page 9 provides income and expense return provided by the owner. It states here that it's partially owner occupied and it's gross income. And page 13 provides information on the City of Winnipeg addenda, in which provides explanation as to how 2% non-recoverable expenses were calculated. If you look on page 17, that's is a sampling of non-recoverable expense calculation where 29 properties were calculated with and the median of non-recoverable expenses for was at 1.06%. And City of Winnipeg is using 2% non-recoverable expense allowance. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, questions for the assessor?
Yes, page 4, the valuation, was this all done by the model?
Yes.
You have 6,295 square feet. Why does that differ from what the owner provided, which is 5,450?
Property is the entire footprint of the building is measured to arrive at 6,295 square feet.
Sorry,
the entire area of the building is measured to arrive at 6,295
who measured that?
It's the information is provided on the plans that were submitted.
On the plan. So no one measured the leasable area?
The building area is on the plans, and that's it is at 6,295 square feet.
It's listed on the plan, but that differs from leasable area, does it not? This is a multi-tenanted building. There are issues that don't get to the leasable area, such as stairwells, correct?
Subject property is on the City of Winnipeg records occupied by Irving Homes. It's a single tenant occupancy.
Okay, but all you had was the plans for that number, is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, and what about the patio on the second floor? Did you include that in the floor space?
That's not included.
Okay, but you don't have the measurements for that. Now, what was wrong with the, why do you mail out the expense mailer so that the owner can tell you he's got 5,450 square feet and it's not applied?
The area, the property was calculated, and it's a new building. It's 2016 built. The plans are here. Based on the plans, the entire the building.
Okay. You're still talking about the physical area, though, correct?
I'm talking about physical area, and it's
Not
a single occupancy, and it's applicable for a single occupant tenants. The entire building area is accounted for.
Now, you said earlier it was owner occupied, but then later on, page 11, did you correct that or not? Because there are three tenants listed who, under owner occupied column, there's an N put there. Is that correct?
There is mailer provides the information. However, it would appear that they are all related companies and they are all Irving under Irving Homes.
Where is this evidence?
That's how City of Winnipeg have listed business assessment for.
But the owner filled it in. The owner, and let's see, Mr. Schellenberg, who's the accountant for Irwin Homes, said it's not owner occupied, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's partially owner occupied.
Partial, and then we're not disputing that Irwin Homes is the owner of the property, correct?
Correct.
Partial owner, partial, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those rents, did you calculate what those three units achieve in rent?
Let me just run the numbers again. $26.35.
$26, that's correct. Gross, correct? No recoveries? That's a gross number, correct?
It is a gross number, yeah.
And on page 9, the expenses of the site are shown. Is that correct? So you were able to, you did have the data to come up with a net rent, did you not?
It's wouldn't be able to provide net to come up data for the net rent as building is partially owner occupied.
Well, the expenses are the expenses. It's got nothing to do with expenses, right? They're listed $97,729 in building expenses. But that's got nothing to do with.
That would be for
nothing to do with who occupies it, does it?
That would be for the entire premise.
Yes, that's correct.
But
and the comparables you're showing on page 5, these are, with the exception of one, all in different parts of town, correct? Exception of number 8.
oh, yes. Let me just say. Well, number 8 is on Henderson Highway, and number 7 is. I mean, it's on the main street.
But that's a strip mall, is it not?
I believe it is, yeah.
It's my tenant, my client. It's a strip mall, correct?
I think actually I don't have the information whether it's a strip or not. Yeah.
And from which line item did the capitalization rate came from which line on page 7?
Office section B.
B?
Mhm.
And that's the OFS line?
Yes. Suburban B.
Those are my questions.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you.
Stuart, can you hear us? No.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. And now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost the audio halfway through Mr. Neufeld's questioning. Have you completed your questioning then, Mr. Neufeld? Is that
Yes, I did.
okay? Thank you.
Did you need me to recap it, how brilliant it was, or did you catch it all?
I caught it up to the point that you were trying to make about the leasable area and the expenses for the entire property could be used for netting out the gross rent. Was there another line of questioning that I missed? That you
I asked about the source of the cap rate and talked
Right.
about comparables in other locations.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, there was technical difficulty there somehow, but Ms. Linkletter, did you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. Arca,
Yes.
did you have a chance to inspect this property?
No, I did not.
Okay. So I'm assuming this is a new build, correct?
Oh, it's 2016 built.
2016. So do you have any field notes?
I do. I do have field notes and I do have plans. I do have field notes and I do have plans.
Okay, I'm just wondering about the finishings. Do you have any information on that?
Oh, okay. There is no specific notes as far as finish. No.
And also on page 4 of your brief, that's all model driven. Okay, and do you know, you've got different spaces listed. Which one is occupied by Irwin Homes? Do you know?
We have it as the entire building is occupied by Irving Homes.
Okay. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions for the assessor?
No questions.
Thank you. I just had a little clarification as well. On page 1 of your brief, you show it's 3 premises, but on page 4, you've only got 2 broken down, one being 4775 square feet and one being 1520. Is there a third one somewhere, or is it just
Well,
2 per?
let me just take. The 2 premises here are listable areas. The third one, I would let me just make sure. The building also has a basement area, but I don't think it's accounted as a part of the leasable area. And I would assume the third one would account for the building itself.
I see. And so that
Yeah.
1,520 square foot premise, is it safe to assume that that's the aggregate of the 3 500 square foot premises that are reported by the owner on his I&E?
Well, the 1,500 square foot actually on the building plans is the first floor front part of the building. And it adds up very close to that. If not, I didn't add it up, but if it adds up very similar, close, probably it is. I just didn't look into it to tell you exactly what that premise is, what those 3 premises that the property owner reported, what they exactly the area they are in.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Neufeld, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. Building was built primarily to be Irwin Homes office, and there is rented space in it. The parties in that, I don't know exactly specifically who they are, but this is not an uncommon thing to do with builders. I work for Gateway, Randall, Merritt. The first 2 have other people in their buildings, some are related to their business, like they work with them. They're not part of their operation. In Randall's case, it's a lawyer. In Gateway's case, it's some sub-trades who worked with them in the past. And quite not at all surprised to see this sort of thing. The document was filled out by their accountant. It's accurate. A couple of things for you to point out to show you that their degree of accuracy is, they say on the assessor's page 9.3% of the space is vacant. If you then look at the assessor's page 11 and calculate what the vacancy rate was for the first 4 months of 2017 when those 3 tenants moved in, it works out to exactly 9.3%. So they know what they're doing. Irwin Homes builds properties, both commercial and residential. They own the development to the rear of this property, which was turned into a multifamily building. So the paid rents, we did calculate them. We came up with $10.20 a square foot. That's simply by taking their gross income and subtracting the expenses, which were divisible by the rentable square area of 5450. That comes out to $10.20. Now those 3 tenants occupy space on the first floor. The owner occupies some space on the first floor, and the balance is on the second floor of 3,930 square feet. Now we did put a higher rent on that of $12, then higher than the market rents charged on the main floor. And the reasoning was that it looks like he had exclusive use of a patio, which is not in the rentable square footage. Support for our rents we have a number of rents through the city, much like the assessor did. However, unlike the assessor, we know that our rents don't include tenant improvement allowances and are free of influences. On page 3, a couple I'm going to point out to you. On third of the way down, 1750 Main Street. This is a medical office, and those are second floor and first floor rents, $8.50 to $9. A bit further down the page, 2/3 of the way down, 1128 Henderson is at $13, and that's a Sylvan Learning Center on, I believe that's main floor space. Now, in the now the rest of the rents vary and are located throughout the city. Those are the ones that are located in close proximity. And the reason we use these rents is because we are involved with the deals. So we have the leases. We know if there are any, if there's any creative financing or inducements, we do not use those rents if they do. On page 9 is from the Johnson report, June 2018. And I triple check this with Mr. Johnson all the time. He accumulates these rates. He just informed me 2 days ago, accumulates these rates in 2017, prepares them in the first few months of 2018, and publishes them effective June 2018. So these are all within the reference period. And there are a number of properties that are listed for rent in the suburban areas. This would be generally considered a suburban C. It has nothing to do with the age or the quality. It's the size, the amenities, and the interest of the market in terms of can you attract a top-level tenant. And the Cs that we have listed there are ranging on, remember these are asking rates from $12 to $15. Now there is one noted in the suburban Bs at 755 Henderson, and that's a business center. So that's a shared accommodation facility. Just so you know that it's one of those things where you get to use part of the boardroom and part of the reception, and that comes with your rent. So it's not an example we're going to rely on, but I just pointing it out because it is on Henderson. So our rents that we are looking at are then work out to $62,664. The vacancies differ slightly from the assessor's number in that we do take it from the Johnson report, page 5, and it's a mix of the suburban mean and the office mean, about 5.95%. I believe that's more accurate than what the city has. And we provide you our source material. The non-recoverables, we've used the standard 5%, and I know you're all quite familiar, but if you need to refer, page 43 and onwards gives our study. And I'll repeat again, and I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but the city made this stuff up for 2020 on non-recoverables. There's nowhere in the world it exists except in the City of Assessment Department, City of Winnipeg Assessment Department. And I say that with all respect, you can't make up valuation standards. The Municipal Assessment Act, as I reread it often, talks about following the market, and the market applies non-recoverables. For structural reserves, which is the same as what it was used to be applied at other, we do have a lower number than the assessor, and that's because the market would generally dictate a newer building like this that it's not going to be as high. Our shortfall is higher than what the assessor has at $7, but of course, you also have the statements which indicate what those costs actually are. The cost of carrying vacant space, none of those expenses go away. Some utilities get marginally reduced, but we've calculated it at 1040, and the actual number incidentally is 1555 are the expenses. So for the total expenses, so we're only using 1040. So our NOI is 51,066. As for capitalization rates, generally, this type of property doesn't get reported by any major company. I've got some reports that I've listed in my workup on showing some on page 6 and on the Colliers report. This doesn't hit the market people because the market, the four major firms are really only interested in investment grade properties, 100,000 square feet plus office. So, but that's, and I think the same thing, the issue has to be looked at with the city's rates is that there should be some sort of a breakdown. They should be able to show you the difference based on the physical parameters of the building. We don't ever get to see that. How does this model get made up? The point is that many buildings like this do end up selling on a per square foot basis rather than as an investment property. And we do have a sampling of smaller ones on page 38 and 905 Waverly, 7.93, 848 Jubilee, which was an office conversion, 8% older building, and some retail strip properties. But by and large, this type of property doesn't get a lot of interest. And what you often see in the appraisal world is somebody taking the actual sale price and giving you a capitalization rate when the sale itself wasn't based on the investment criteria. So our rate is an investment criteria sale, but this market segment generally doesn't sell by its investment grade. So it's accurate for the report, but for value, I'm not afraid of what the assessor has put in here based on the income we have. It would likely represent, though, not the investment value nor the income approach. It would represent the direct comparison approach and value to a user. So I'm not changing my number, but that's my value. And yeah, I know that's incredibly different than what's it's assessed at. This is the first time it's been appealed. And I think by and large, the major area that I'd ask the board to look at is the rents that they're actually achieving in this building. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, questions for the applicant?
Yes. So, Mr. Neufeld, on your page 3, on page 3 of your report, where you provide information on rent comparable, again, you are using rents from all over the town, correct?
No, in the long run, we're relying primarily on the subject's own experience. These are samplings of rents around town. And as I said, the difference is that we know that they're clean rents. I don't mean that clean and that yours are dirty. I just say they're clean. Sorry, I'm always getting in trouble. Free of any sort of an influence from a tenant improvement or creative financing.
All right. Those buildings, do you know how old how old those buildings are? Are they as new as subject property or much older, or?
Generally, I know the age of all of these buildings within a few years or so.
So would it be safe to say?
Like, for example, we have listed about the 8th selection is 2536 Main. And we have $16, and I know you've got different numbers there, but that is a new build, and that is a client of ours, and it's a medical office.
Okay, so that's your comparable. You say 2536 Main, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's okay. So that's a newer building, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but for the most part, when I look at some of them appear to be old. Like, is 1128 Henderson a newer building?
No, I believe it's 1970s.
And it's a strip mall as well, right?
It's in a strip mall. That's correct. Yes.
So, subject property. Have you inspected subject property?
No.
Okay. All right, but given subject property's age, it has to be by using assessment standard. It has to be treated with a newer aged, with comparables that are similar in age. Would you agree with me?
No, what it's going to be is a utility and a fit for the needs. And an office is a shell, and it's what you do with it after you rent the site. So there's numerous examples of retrofitted office space that are generating much higher revenue than new space. And so it's a fit for the person. Age is a factor to consider, but just to give you an idea, that one of the newer, more superior buildings in here, which we quote is 850 Pembina, which was built in the 80s and later, is now only achieving 950 rent. Now, whereas 1455 Buffalo, a little further down, is a 1950s industrial conversion, which is achieving 1075. They're in the same neighborhood.
850 Pembina, let's see, where do you see?
It's about the middle of the chart, a little below the middle.
Okay. So 950, would that be, because there is two of them here. One is 1352 and another one is 950. Would it be safe to say that 950 would be in a, would be an inferior, 1352 would be a more appropriate space?
No. They were two different tenants, and the one for 15,000 was a bit higher because of economy of scale, reverse economy of scale. They needed 15,000 feet, and they had to move some people around, the mining association around, and a financial firm around in order to accommodate them. So they got those costs expressed in that lease. Whereas when the 4,500 square feet came to the market, it was just there. They didn't have any costs to make it happen. So, and that's what it got.
So I guess the 4,500 square feet is not, do you know what floor it is on?
That building has 2 levels, and I think it's this a second floor space.
Does it have basement?
That building, no.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm just curious to see, like on page 1 of your report, the shortfall of $10.40. Where I'm just surprised to see the number that is a bit higher than the rent you want to claim a bit higher up at $10.20. So would you, like, I guess, why would a shortfall rate be higher than a rent, the actual net rent?
Because that's what the costs are, and the rent is what they can achieve. Now, the biggest error most appraisers make in rent is forgetting the truth. Landlords care about net, tenants care about gross. So you're renting to somebody and you're asking for $26 gross. The tenant doesn't care what the CAM costs are. All he cares about was the final numbers. And you're in competition with other properties that are at $26 gross. So you could find another building down the street where the net's 15 and the CAM is 10. And you would say, well, this space is worth $5 more. Why are you renting it for $5 less? Because that's the cost of the building. So there is a balance there that, as I said, in the comparative process for selecting leases is very important. In an appraisal, for example, we have to very much go through the operating costs to compare them to show the attraction on the market. Now, the worst example in the city is the Medical Arts Building. Their CAM cost got close to $20 a foot. And of course they couldn't get more than 25 gross, so they're getting nothing for net. They're competing against the building next door who got their cams are at 11. So that question, I mean, I'm glad you asked the question, and I respect that you probably may not have seen this, but I've been involved in the leasing and valuation business for over 20 years, and that's what you have to look at. So I look at the number of $26 gross. You're just not gonna, you're competing now down the street. 1128 Henderson is the one I brought up as an example. Now 1128 is getting $13 net, but the cams on that building are a little over $10. So their gross is $23.
Does subject property doesn't have a lot of common area, does it?
I haven't been in it, but the subtractions from the total areas, first of all, looking at the plan area, not disputing 3,265 square feet, but the offset for the patio is a fair bit larger than I think you've given it credit for. In my eyes, it's looking like about close to 450, 500 square feet. Also, you must subtract vertical penetrations, which are stairwells on each floor. And some people, when they're calculating their areas, may take the common area out, like the foyer. And normally, in a big building, in an office building, you're going to split that up with everybody. In a small building, again, the standard isn't necessarily applied the same from building to building. The office will be Class A, B, C buildings will be done differently than miscellaneous, like the subject. But in the market, they're competing with the strip mall. Now, the strip mall measurement is what do they call it? Inside glass to inside glass. Period. And it's all about the usable space.
Well, subject property is a standalone building, correct? Subject property is a standalone building. It's not a strip mall.
Subject building is a multi-story, multi-tenanted office purposed building.
Which currently has a one tenant. It was designed for one tenant, which is Urban Homes. Do you know if they sublease the tenants or?
No. It was designed for multi-tenancy. As I said right in the beginning, this is very common. Designed for multi-tenancy. There's other users in there.
Okay, no, that's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater, questions for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Neufeld, page 1 of your brief, you state that, sorry, I'm just looking at this. I think you give us the 2018 assessment, but you said it was not appealed. Do you know why?
Yes, the owner just missed entirely. So they were in the middle of that entire corner they're developing it along with the apartment behind it. It's like, I think over 100 units.
Do you know, Mr. Neufeld, how much it cost to build this building?
No, I didn't ask him. I can give you a rough idea from similar buildings we have, quotations. Generally, we're probably in the neighborhood of 140 to 160 a foot per building of this sort.
Mr. Chair, may I redirect to the city?
Yes.
Thank you. Arco, do you have any permits for this building? Is it giving any numbers about the costs?
Well, the permit declared construction value is 850,000.
850,000? Mm-hmm. And that's just the construction?
Yes.
So, anything on the land value?
No, there is no land value information.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld, verbally you said that the actual shortfall was $15.55.
Well, that's what I had calculated it when I used the assessor's 6295
Oh.
square feet.
I see.
I was
So
just
that-
reading that. I was sitting here. I didn't do it on the 5450. It's actually higher than
Okay, so that's what, because you had 1610 actually on your page one.
that. Yeah.
So that's based on different leasable areas then.
No, I didn't read my own page one.
Okay.
I was reading the assessor's brief, and when I did that calculation, I'm going with 1610. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. And do we know who the tenants are? Are they arm's length from the owner?
Yeah, and I don't want to make an error here. I believe that there are people who are in the same related business as the owner, but not agencies of theirs.
I see. And your cap rate, you start with 7.5% and then make an adjustment?
Well, on an investment basis, that's what I would, yes, as an investment property.
Okay.
Because that's the market amount that, for example, Colliers would have had it at. But we don't track it, so.
Yeah, and you're saying as an investment property, and that's regardless of the age of the property, whether it's, fairly new build or whether it's a 30-year-old property?
Well, the primary criteria is who's leasing it for an investor. What's the strength and length of the leases? So, I think Irwin Homes is probably be deemed as a very good covenant, but again, we can't assess based on covenants. So
right.
The investment community is primarily focused on who is leasing from me. So here we're talking about local tenancies, which are already in the second level, and does the building? The question we have to ask is, does the building appeal to a tenant with a strong covenant? In an example of the building next door, which they also own, is a garage. And an example there would be, if Goodyear rented it, could rent it and like it, it's worth more. If just a local garage have interest in it, it's worth less on the cap rate side. That's the best analogy. So.
I see. Okay, I thank you. Desire for summation, Mr. Assessor.
Again, quick summations. Subject property is a relatively new building built in 2016. On my page 5, there are rents to support the net rent that is that city has assessed for the subject property. And the area of the building came into question. We have it at 6,295. This is the actual area of the building that is, and we have it as in our city records. We have it as a single tenant, which is Urban Home, and the entire footprint of the building is being calculated for the rent. For the rent. Yeah. So that's my summation. Thank you very much.
I thank you. Mr. Neufeld, a brief summation?
Thank you. Sorry, and I did forget to comment on the sale. And the sale was actually listed that way because it was initially a share sale, and it did transact at $286,000. You heard what the permit value is. You heard what the land value is. They're much lower than the assessed value. 1136,955 is the actual number. Cost doesn't necessarily equal value. The achieved rents are projected when the building is being built, and they didn't make it to that level. And that's the imperfection of the market. That's why cost doesn't equal. So as I mentioned, the rents reflect what the building can actually attain. the parameters, lots of disagreement over the years. You make your own decision, and the cap rate is small buildings have their difficulties. Thank you. That's my.
All right. I thank you. Yeah, I think we'll move on to the next property then on the docket. That is 1210 Pembina Highway. So when you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
All right. So file number 349. Roll number 0309026900. 210 Pembina Highway, owner Grand Crown and Bridge Incorporated. Roll year 2021. Reference date April 1st, 2018. Assessed value $403,000. So it's a standalone building on Pembina Highway with land area of 3,737 square feet. Gross floor area 2,356 square feet and the leasable area of 2,356 square feet. Okay, so it's 1950 built with effective years at 1970 and 1975. Page 2 and 3 provide pictures of the subject property. It's right there on the subject property is on the corner of Pembina and Waterford. So page 2 provides a street view and the aerial view, and page 4 provides front view, and page 3 provides a rear view and side view. Yes, page 4, October 18, 2006 sale, $230,000. Page 5 is what we have. We have two premises. Each one of them is 1,178 square feet. It's main floor and the basement. Blended rate $10.24 per square foot. Potential. So potential rate 25,763 square feet with vacancy at 5.5, expenses at 2% and $7 per square foot shortfall, and cap rate of 5.7%. The estimated value is $403,000. Page 6 provides comparables, so rent comparables. The ones that I guess closer to subject property would be the 1180 Pembina, 2065 Pembina, and 2077 Pembina. 2077 Pembina and 2065 Pembina are on a strip mall just south of Bishop Grandin. And 1180 Pembina is very close to subject property. Page 7 again provides a income value summary. We already went over it. Page 8 provides capitalization rates, and again we are using a suburban office B cap rates section just as previous property. Page 9 excerpts from municipal assessment tax. Page 10 provides a copy of the income and expense mailer that's sent by the property owner. It's owner-occupied property. And page 9 again provides a fresh look on how the 2% shortfall and unrecoverable expenses were calculated, and we've been over it for a number of times. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
I thank you. Mr. Neufeld, questions for the assessor?
Yes, page 5, this is done by the model,
Yes, this model.
and the premise ID, the lower one, premise ID 30261, is that
Yes.
the basement?
That is, yes.
Can you show me your basement rents? Do you have any?
I can speak to them.
Do you have any in evidence?
Yes, 1 second. Okay. The basement rents were not included in the main evidence. My mistake, I forgot it, but I can speak to it. And for basement rents, they range anywhere from $6.50 to $11. In relationship to properties on Pembina, we have $9 basement rents. In properties like 1483 Pembina,
You're saying 1483 is a basement rent,
yes.
okay?
So there we have basement rates of $9. So that's what I have for basement rates.
The subject's basement separately demised per entrance?
No, it's not.
Does it have its own restroom facilities?
Actually, the only restroom facility in the building, to my knowledge, is in the basement.
Okay, so the upper floor doesn't have restroom.
It looks like the upper floor doesn't.
Is it finished?
Well, it's a storage.
Storage.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now you brought up 1483 Pembina basement. That's not a basement though, is it? That's at bi-level height, correct?
We have it as a basement.
You have it as a basement, but it is at bi-level height. It's half above grade, half below grade, correct?
I can't say.
You don't know?
I don't know for sure. Yeah.
And you know that this is a purpose, that 1483 Pembina is a purpose-built office building that has demised offices in the building. You walk in, you go down the stairs to some offices, or up the stairs to some offices. They all have their own doors.
Yep.
You haven't been in it?
I haven't.
Okay. In this case, we have a building built in 1950, and you're using a capitalization rate of 5.7%. And you did ask me the question about age. On the last one, 1967 Henderson, built in 2017, you have a higher cap at 6.55%. Does that not suggest that the model either fails to recognize age or there's an error here somewhere?
So cap rate is a factor being used when you assess, yes, not only the age of the property. Would you agree with me? Like cap rate accounts for many factors, which is not specific to the age of the property.
You're not aware that a cap rate primarily is concerned about the remaining economic life of the revenue stream? How long and durable is the revenue? How good is it? How long will it last? That's a cap rate, right?
Oh, cap rate is capitalization rate is a value that the return on investment that the property that the potential investor wants to receive.
So I don't have any other questions other than that I haven't already asked, and I assume we've been over that ground.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Linkletter, questions for the assessor?
Did you have a chance to inspect this?
No, I did not.
Okay. Do you know when it was last inspected?
Let me just give me a second. No, I don't have information on the inspection, so I can't.
Okay.
I don't know.
So on page 1, you've got an effective age of 1970
Yes.
to 75. Do you know why? What changed? to give it that effective age?
Well, I cannot say exactly what what triggered it. So I don't know. I don't know what triggered it.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Just a little clarification on the basement. You said that that's strictly a storage rate. Is it just storage in the basement, or it's not a lab or anything of that sort?
Well, we have it as we're accounting for a storage purpose. So what's in the basement is a storage area, and bathroom and some mechanical area.
Okay, so it's all ancillary to the main floor space then.
Correct.
It wouldn't be able to rent that out on its own. It's
No, I don't think it would.
okay. I thank you. And just to follow up on the cap rate, in that there's many factors. Can you tell us what the main factors are? The cap rate, and why this one on Pembina Highway that's substantially older than the one that was fairly new build on Henderson Highway, why there's such a discrepancy in the cap rates?
Well, we see smaller lower cap rates in I guess smaller, lower value buildings. Such buildings are typically being purchased not only for investment use but also for owner occupancy, and at that time lower value properties such as subject property, which is under like $400,000 assessed value, have more market players, and they tend to pay slightly more, and thus affect the cap rate.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. The owner is the occupant. They're obviously Grant, Crown, and Bridge, so they make dental implements. They recently expanded, and not into the basement. They bought the building next door to move more of their operation into. So they now own 1208 Pembina. Sorry, 12 between 10 and 1216. Okay. Anyway, this building is 1,178 square feet. It built in the 50s. You know what the basements were like in the 50s, poured basement, used for storage. I haven't had the opportunity to inspect it myself. We actually, the whole period of this, the three properties today, all of them were new clients, so obtained and done the work during the COVID time. So I'm not allowed to do inspections in any building where there's people in there. So I haven't looked at the basement, but I'm very, very familiar with this stretch of Pembina Highway and the construction. And we did speak to the ownership that he said he uses it for storage. I should have asked him to send a picture of it. Sorry, I just wanted to. All right, the rent we used is, if there's ever a rent you're really happy that you have, it'd be the building next door that's similar age and condition. So that building is 1220 Pembina. that, if you look at the picture, is picture on page 2, it's the building that's 2 buildings to the south. This was a former Bank of Nova Scotia, and after they vacated, it was rented to a company that buys and sells commodities. The basement, I have been in it. It's similar to the subject. It's virtually the same age, and its rent, it is an arm's length rent. The owner is Smith Agency. The rent is $16 a square foot on a 5-year term, which includes the basement. They only pay rent on the upper level. And that is also consistent with requirements under securities for agents and appraisers. We don't talk about basements as having separate value, because they don't. They need to be separate entrances. They have to be demised for a tenant. They have to be capable of having an occupancy permit or having an occupancy permit for a primary use, not an accessory use. So this doesn't qualify on anybody's standards, but it does add to amenities. So when I looked at the assessor's numbers at a $14 rate on the main floor, and we're using $16 overall for the added amenity of the basement, we're somewhat even on the same page. And some other rents, just to put this in perspective, 1166 Pembina, which is a bit further north, that's a denture clinic. They're at $10.11, but that's for only main floor space. And then we have a number of the other rents on Pembina Highway. On page 4, I'm pretty sure I quote 1483 Pembina. Yes, I do, in the middle of the page. That's a 3-story building, and none of the units are characterized as basement rents. It's a bi-level building. The first level is half below grade, half above grade. And then the second and third floors are all above grade. So they're getting $9 rents, certainly, but it's not a basement by any stretch, by anybody's definition. So basements don't count. With the rest of the numbers, we're using a mix between the retail and the office. This is on Pembina. The neighborhood on Pembina here, I wouldn't really call it office. It's mixed usage. It's a predominantly retail street. And I think that a retail user would find interest in this property just as well as an office user, probably more so. And so we do have slightly different numbers than the assessor, and very marginally different. We do put in non-recoverables. In this particular case, I know that the non-recoverables are extremely high. You'll note that they're declaring expenses. I worked it out to $16.71 a square foot are their cost to occupy. Going back to our previous issue about CAMs, and that was just taking the form they sent in and of course subtracting the internet, which doesn't count. So that's $16.71 a foot. For our shortfall, what we did is we used, as we did with the other property, we're using a lower rate. And what we do is we took the actual tax at 821. Utilities, we're using 245, and this is the city assessment department's business rate. And the reason we use it is because in a property like this, I think utilities might be a bit higher than in a normal property because they are making implements on site, so they could be higher. And for repair and maintenance, we're using a stabilized number of $1. So that's why we get 1166 on our shortfall. With an NOI of 15,868. As for capitalization, the same issues occurred. Buildings like this aren't sold as investment properties. The assessment department's position, and not talking about my friend beside me, their position is completely, and Mr. McPherson, no disrespect to your former profession, their position is entirely incorrect. The reason they show that small buildings get lower rates is because they mistakenly call them investment buildings. I recently had the opportunity to review cap rate study for a case going to municipal board, and I got a chance to see these suburban office buildings. Each and every one of them was an owner occupant, either buying it or selling it to another owner occupant, or was an assemblage property and not an investment property. And that's why the cap rates aren't relevant that they're using. That's why for years we've been saying, show us your rates, let's look at them, let's analyze them. And if you're going to use the income approach and you're going to use a rate, it can't be an artificial rate. So in the market, this building would have very little interest. It's an 8.75%. If you were capping this and doing an income approach on it, the value of 181,000 is all you're going to see. On the direct comparison approach, I think it would go for higher. But we're not doing the direct comparison approach. Buildings in this neighborhood can be a little shy of $200 a foot for direct sales, but that's not how they're being assessed. Again, that's significantly below the assessed value, and the reason, the error in this case, is primarily the basement, not rentable, does not add to value, because on an investment basis, you can't use it to generate income. It fails the definition, and the cap rates are misleading. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, questions for the applicant?
Yes, wanted to get some information on one of the comparables you are using. It's that neighborhood property 1220 Bambina.
Yes.
Where did you get this information from?
From the owner.
In what form did he provide it to you?
Pardon me?
In what form did he provide it to you? Was it
Financial statements and personal interviews.
And when he did provide it to you, you managed to get $60 per square foot net. That's how.
Well, that was the workup on it. I was actually also involved in the previous tenant when they were looking at termination. So I was working with them on that basis. And then when they brought this to market, he asked my advice on the rents. So it was a little bit more than just reading reports.
Because you didn't look at the income and expense statement that
I have it in my possession.
That the property owner said it to you, right?
I have it in my possession.
So, yeah, because when I did it, I just did you calculate the income and expense mailer for the 1220?
No, I mean the company that owns this has a unique way of reporting or of doing their accounting, and every lease is semi-gross, and sometimes the utilities are separately metered, and sometimes they're separately charged out, and then the owner retains responsibility for many items that are usually charged back to tenants, and so it is a semi-gross lease.
Oh, yeah. Why I asked? Because when he sent the information to me, to the city of Winnipeg, first of all, it's post-reference information. He only used it in post-reference income and expense mailers. The mailers that was in reference period was a bit different, and it did not. Do you know what was the value in the 2017 mailer? Did you look at that one?
I've seen it, yes.
Yeah. And
you don't mind if can I take a look at it, because I think I know the answer to your question. Even though
actually it is part of the rebuttal package.
You have a rebuttal package?
Yeah, it is part of the rebuttal package. So if you should be able to see it, there is one mistake on the rebuttal package, and I apologize for that. For it, I made a spelling error. On the very first page, it says instead of board of revision, it says board of revision. I left out a letter D at the end, so my apologies for that.
Are you handing it out or what?
Do you want to finish your questioning first, and then we'll deal with the rebuttal?
Okay. All right. I guess, I guess many of my questions were answered. Subject property was not inspected, and actually, do you know the condition of the subject property?
I can't, I can't be certain other than just by driving by, and every time I drive by and look at it, it's, to me, it looks like a below average, retail storefront.
That's all. Those are all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater, questions for the applicant?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
Just clarification, 1483 Pembina, you said that that's a lower level of a bi-level type building, is that correct?
Well,
I said it's, I believe when you referred to the basement, I call it the first level of a bi-level.
Okay. But that is the one we're talking about that was at, what, $14, $16?
$9.
1483. Oh yes, $9. Yes, thank you. And do you happen to know what the upper level went for, or is that owner occupied?
No, that's a fair. They go up about 50 cents a foot going upwards. I think the top rent they've achieved out of there has been around $10.50, $11.
Okay. I thank you. Mr. Assessor, you had some rebuttal evidence?
yeah, for my rebuttal evidence, what I did is I put together the income and expense mailers that appellant used for the first few properties on Pembina. On pages are not numbered. I kind of put it together in a bit of a haste. However, what we can see is rent information that the property owner provided is a gross rent. The first two pages, or I guess first 4 pages, would be the 2017 income and expense mailer that the property owner provided, and in that he lists two tenants for in the property of 1220 Pembina Highway, and they're all gross rents. A lot of extrapolations had to be done to arrive at the values per square foot. No monthly rents are listed, areas are not provided. The post-reference income and expense mailers that refers to that $16 per square foot. When I calculate it, actually arrives at $17.29 per square foot.
Which what are you talking about? Page where?
Well, it's 2018, so it will be income and expense mailer for 1220 Pembina Highway.
Just tell me how you calculated that, if you don't mind. You're talking about 2018 period due May 6th, 2019?
Yes. So there is total income of $45,024. Page 2 provides annual administrative recoveries. However, there is no administrative recoveries listed in the on the first calculation on the first page. So those recoveries would have to be added to further calculate the value. And when annual those recoveries are added, the value arrives to be at 1729.
1729, how do you get that? I get 1295.
Are you adding the recoveries?
The recoveries of 45,024 equal the rent plus the amount of recoveries, 2952 a month, plus $9,600 in the annual recovery. That's 45,024. So that's the revenue side, rent and recoveries. Then the costs then are 16,359, which leaves a net operating income on a single tenant building 28,665 or 1295 a foot.
Okay, I see. No, I was adding recoveries to the net operating income as when I did my calculation. So
And well. And if you took the rent listed here at 2952, which was the rent that was listed, that's $16 a foot, isn't it? $29.52 times 12 divided by 22.14 is $16, right?
It is, yes.
Okay. So you're just now trying to tell me that you like my number, but actually my number's wrong. It should be $12.95. I didn't do this. I'm not changing it.
Okay, then further down we have okay, so 1166 Pembina. That's comparable number to that arrives at $11 per square foot, and I guess listen here says it's $10.11.
Now this is the one where on the page it says that there are no recoveries at all, and there's just income, and the only expense listed is insurance, $628. That's what you're saying?
Yes. So when you calculate that, that is $11 per square foot.
And with the 628 taken out? Well,
yeah.
I don't think we have to waste a lot of time on this. Our number given to us by our agent who did the deal was that we're done at 990 square feet. Now they're saying it's 910. So you want to stroke off 10, 11, and we'll concede to $11.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It hardly changes our opinion of value on the subject.
Okay. And then again, the comparable number 3 is at the last page, 2195 Pembina Highway. That's a 20,000 square foot giant tiger.
Yeah, I'm not using it for this property.
Yeah, that's again like if we further look into it, there are other properties that have different rates into $20 per square foot, $17.50, and so on. So again, that further supports higher values per square foot. That's my rebuttal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you have any further questioning or comments on that, Mr. Neufeld?
It's fine. I like it. But there's no.
Okay.
This is just incredibly supportive. I thank you very much. And I'm not trying to be a little over smug about it, but it's good you're doing your work. It doesn't change our number. We have a difference in square footage, so I'll take $11. And actually, the $16 I now see is post-reference, and it should have been actually $12.95 by the correct workup. I didn't do the 16. Whereas the 2017 number, which would be the reference period, is actually $464 a foot rent. However, that was impacted by very high maintenance and repairs in that year, and it is a gross lease. You know, if you want to look at it another way, and again, this is not a net rent, It's just the way they do it. They would actually be quoting this at about $15.55, but it's the Smith Agency rent, and this is how they do all their buildings. They charge them flat amounts for recoveries, flat for rent, and then the costs are all theirs to incur. Good, thanks.
Thank you. Desire for a summation at all, Mr. Assessor, or have you pretty much given us your stance on this?
Well, I guess just again, quick
Okay.
just to recap, subject property is a standalone building. It's 1178 square feet, the main floor with the same size storage basement. We have a blended rate of 1094 per square foot for subject property. It's yes, on my page 6 of my report, there is comparable sales, comparable rents that would support the value of $14.72 per square foot for main floor. And again, we've been over the non-recoverable expenses, and that's basically just ask the board to consider it. That's all I have. That's my summation. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, desire for a brief summation?
Thank you. Just remind the board that I did present far more rents on page 3, and I didn't go through them all. There are a lot more very interesting ones, such as 1385 Grant, 1431 Corden. Grant is similar in being strip units with basements at $15.16 a foot. Pembina, we've overstated the rent. It's lower than 16, but that's what we were stuck with. I'm not changing it. And the other Pembina is $11 without a basement. So 16, we're really not that far apart if one just remembers that basement is not rentable. And the assessor's rent of $14, we changed it to 16 to account for the utility of having a basement. And then other than that, the workups differ, and capitalization, I don't think, this is something that all too often you get questioned about the age of something, whether something older should get a lower rent or a lower sale price or a lower cap. If there were one feature in valuation that an older building should get is generally a higher cap rate. And it's not because it's older, its remaining economic life is lower. It will not generate as much income for as long a period as one that has a longer life. A cap rate, the theory behind a cap rate, it's a 35-year revenue stream to arrive at a cap rate. So one takes the revenue over 35 years and discounts those for time, and that's how a cap rate is derived. That's the math behind it. So if you have a building with a 20-year remaining economic life, the cap rate mathematically has to be higher. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you. We are going to take a brief break at this point. Would 5 minutes do it, or do we need 10? Everybody good with 5 minute break? Okay, then I will call a recess, and we'll resume at 2:45, please. I will call the hearing back to order. And the last property we have to deal with today is 252 River Avenue. So when you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
File number 20339, roll number 1203-183-8500, address 252 River Avenue, owner 1003-8100 Manitoba Limited. Roll year 2021, reference date April 1st, 2018. Assessed value $1,152,000. Subject property is a standalone office building, land area 18,149 square feet, plan area 5,222 square feet, leasable area 5,222 square feet, gross floor area 6,922 square feet, and the basement area of 1,700 square feet. Actual year builds 1983 and 1987, effective year builds 1987 to 1995. And page 2 provides aerial view and street view of subject property. Subject property is located in the River Osborne neighborhood. It's in a relatively large size lot, 18,149 square feet, provides ample parking. Being the parcel size it is, it would be one of the prime parcels in the area. Okay, moving on. Yes, subject property was sold in 2009 for $525,000. There was also post-reference sale in May 29, 2019. So premise of 5,222 square feet with a rent of $16.37 per square foot. Provides a potential rent of $85,484,000 with vacancy at 5.5, expenses at 2%, and shortfall at $7. Arrives at net operating income of $77,156 with cap rate of 6.7%. Estimated value $1,152,000. Page 5 provides comparables of rent comparables. I highlighted comparable number 7. It's 240 River Avenue. It's the property right very close to subject property. And let's see. Actually, I thought I had a map for it, but I guess it's not. It's yes. Again, it's the comparable number 7 is again similar to subject property standalone building with on a much smaller lot. So on average, we have $13.91 per square foot and a median of $13.63. However, when we look at the properties on River, they are slightly higher. There is comparable 5 and 6 also on River Avenue, and the rents there are slightly higher than a median or average. So again, page 6 provides another income value breakdown. Page 7 provides cap rate tables, and again, we are looking at suburban B, which is with a range of 5.5 to 9.05% cap rates. Okay, page 8 is a municipal assessment excerpt, and actually I did provide pictures. So 240 comparable number 7 to 40 River Avenue. Our pictures are on page 7. There, it's a parcel closer to Donald Avenue. As you can see on the bottom of page 9, the picture. It's a third parcel, but the first building, what would appear to be. And followed by 3 other buildings in the subject property. Again, page 10 provides rents for subject property, income and expense mailer that it's partially owner occupied with a gross rents. And page 14 forward is a fresh look, and I don't want to go into it in full details, but it basically provides a calculation of the 2% non-recoverable expense study. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, questions for the assessor?
Yes, page 4, is this all done by the model?
Yes.
Now, this property has a basement. Why didn't you include it for this property?
I actually I don't know how
You
to
don't
answer the
know? Okay,
question,
that's
but
You haven't inspected this
no, I
property?
did not.
I take it?
Nope.
Okay. On page 1, you indicate construction classes D, wood, or steel framed exterior walls.
Yes.
So, the wood or steel, do you know which it is? Confirm it's wood.
Okay, I can answer your previous question. Basement is unfinished. That's probably most likely why it's not calculated in a leasable area in this particular case. Okay, as far as the specifics of whether it's a wood or steel, I have to say it's wood or steel. I do not have any other information.
All right. Now you've got pictures. One of your comparables is actually in one of the pictures on page 9. And you see it there on page 9. It's the flat one with the flat roof.
Yes,
So that's a
240 River.
That's a masonry building that?
I don't have the specifics of
Okay.
it. So.
And the mailer you have listed here, I heard you say it was partially owner occupied, but the owner at the time was the Peterson King, was it not? And the
Well,
tenant
I
was
just
actually the owner was.
I
was
just
Mr. King.
stated what was reported on the mailer, that
Yeah,
it's
the owner
partially
was Mr.
owner occupied.
It's owner occupied though.
Yeah, it is like on our records, it is owner
Okay.
occupied. Yes.
And what was the usage before it became an office?
Let me see. I don't think I have the well. In order not to spend any more time,
You don't know?
I don't
Okay.
have the information.
And comparables, page 5, you've got 4 from 5 Donald, and that is a multi-story office building.
It is four compare which one is five Donald?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Mhm.
Okay. And 374 River,
It's also a multi-story.
multi-story, those are units in a multi-story building.
Yes,
And 240 River is
it's the one we just saw in the pictures. Yeah,
611 Corridon.
it's another small standalone building.
It's a multi-tenanted building, and that's one most people would know as having a bit of an atrium on Corridon Avenue and an arched entranceway. I'm sorry, I don't know what's the rule here these days. If he gets internet, I want internet.
Okay.
That phone's way too small. It's a multi-tenanted a building with a sort of an arched entranceway. Most people are familiar with it on Corridon Avenue.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay,
So.
that's fine. Did any of your comparables used to be restaurants?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, in your capitalization rate analysis, does the type of construction, is it one of the factors in selecting a rate?
For the cap rate analysis,
Yeah.
which page are you referring to?
No,
Are you referring to the-
no page. Just
Okay.
when you make up your cap rate, does the type of construction, is it a factor?
As far as I know, model generates cap rates. What goes into it, the specifics, I wouldn't know.
Okay, well, for example, you have, in your model, you have what's called a residential conversion, right? Where there's
Okay.
a building that used to be a residence that was converted to a commercial usage, and you carry a cap rate in that? And there's a factor for that?
Well, there is, I guess, residential conversions, and there are different types of parks. Whether they affect cap rates, I cannot say.
Okay, all right. Now, your mean and your median were all below $14, yet you chose a rate of $16.37. Or not you, but the model did. Do you think that your comparables would not support a lower value?
Well, we have also comparables that support higher value. Those are the comparables that I have selected out of trying to focus closer to the neighborhood of River Osborne and within the similar sizes.
Those are my questions.
I thank you. Ms. Linklater, questions?
Yeah, just one question. Page 5 of your brief with your rent comparables.
Yes.
You've got 240 River highlighted.
Yes.
Just for clarification, are you saying that is your best rent comparable?
I think it is. It's very similar. It's only 2 properties away. The picture can be seen on page 9. It's
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay. It's only 2 properties away on the same street, very close proximity. It has it's a similar standalone office building. And as the rate it generates, it's $21.75 per square foot. It is inferior, comparable in the fact that it has very little parking. It's much smaller lot. Subject property has more value to it in terms of land value, in terms of lot size, and having ample parking.
Could you not also consider that it is facing Donald? It has more of a presence in terms of what an office building would be looking for as compared to a building that was a former restaurant that's halfway down the River Avenue? It doesn't have a very high profile, would you agree?
Well, as far as I guess exposure, buildings that faces down will have higher exposure, obviously. The subject the comparable.
The comparable, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No questions.
I just a little clarification on what you're saying is your best comparable, number 7, which is 240 River. And if I look at, I guess it's page 9 that the photograph is.
Yes.
Is that correct? And is that the one that you've got kind of a red dot on a garage? Is that the one we're talking about?
Well, let's see. It has 240, like if you see on page 9 the bottom picture, it has
Right.
240 right on it.
So,
And I think it's one building with that red dot right next to it. I believe it is the one building.
so if I'm looking at the right one, and it's a 2.5-story converted single family dwelling, is that
Oh,
is
no,
that the one?
No, the 240 river would be right to the left of it,
At the left of that one.
closer to Donald. So right.
Oh, okay.
So flat roof, 1 story.
Okay, so if I'm
Next,
looking at the top picture, it looks like there's a little red dot on the garage. I guess that's the one beside it. And then if I look at the lower picture, that little red dot seems to be on the proper one. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So that's a 1-story building as well then, the comparable. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. The building, just trying to think of what its original use was. I first inspected it in about 1996, working for the owner when it was the River Mandarin. And at the first inspection, if you see the pictures, the overhead pictures, it wasn't that big. If you look at some of the detail, I think you might be able to see it on ours. There's a bit of a ridge. The building was originally, actually the assessor's got a better picture on his page 2. You notice there's a flattened perimeter portion of the building. The flattened perimeter was a patio with screening when it was first built. And then later on, it was filled in to become inside seating for the Mandarin. It was, I think Hu used to brag that he built it with reclaimed lumber. He thought that was funny, but he had quite a different outlook on life than many people did. Anyway, and the Mandarin was a very good food, and that was his wife who was the chef, and they kept it until she became ill, and then they sold it to the law firm that did the conversion. Now, my inspections on it, I've been in the basement quite a few times, and yeah, I think it was in use. We used to see a lot of bedding down there, but that's a joke, and that was a long time ago. It's not much of a basement. It's accessible by a narrow stairwell, and not for any code use except nothing at all. It's storage and mechanical. The conversion to the law office, which would have been in and around, I want to say, I guess close to that 2009 date. And then it was occupied and owned by the firm headed by, or I don't know if they headed, but a partner was Mr. King. So he was the owner, occupant of it. He had partners over the time. The last sale that the assessor is bringing up in 2019 was a sale of the real estate and the practice to the current tenants, owners, who are a law firm as well. And they have a very interesting specialty relating to family law. And so that sale, when it comes up before the board in 2 years from now, was a sale of the business. Very interesting. I've never seen a real estate package with the law firm, and I've asked my legal friends, can they do that? They said, yes, you can. So the use continued on. It's an inferior building. That's really the theme of my narrative. It was built by amateurs, and using reclaimed lumber, and it was there was some repairs and modifications on it through the years, but it's a wood frame building with a fairly low remaining economic life. I think one of the difficulties in this part of the city is that there are actually very few tenanted properties until you go west to Corridon or north to the downtown business area. Most of the businesses in this area are owner occupied, and I know I represent about 5 or 6 of them. 5 Donald, of course, is tenanted, and the assessor has put in those rents, and you can see that $9.25 to $15 is what they're getting out of a superior reinforced steel concrete building. 374 River was a new condo construction with residential condo units available, and I don't know anything about those deals. And 611 Corridon is of course on Corridon, and I think most people know what that building is. The one at 240 River is a very small brick building, and I don't have the details on that. I think we're going to find out that there's an element of owner occupancy in there. Regardless, those are the rents, some of the rents in the neighborhood, and there's a range. And we have very few rents that I can actually point to that are similar to it. We did find 470 River, and that's actually, I only put in 1 unit, but it was a purpose-built 3-story building on River across from Safeway, and there's 2 buildings side by side, and the closest rent to the reference here was at $12.50 a foot, and that's a better location. But it is similar construction, being wood framed, and the rest of ours are superior buildings on better thoroughfares or downtown. And I would think that given the quality of this, that we would look towards the lower end of the range. And that's why we're at $12 for a reasonable rental value. Vacancy in this particular area, to see where they get these from. Yeah, in our page 4, this would be miscellaneous suburban. So Johnson would have this at about 7.6%, and the regular office rate is 6.4%. And the sample size of miscellaneous is large enough to give it some accuracy. So we're looking at 7% for a building like this. The person who did this doesn't know the building. I would have put a structural reserve much higher than this, but given the type of construction, and I've known about its numerous problems over the years. Shortfall is based as before. We took the taxes and a standard amount for utilities and a standard amount for repair and maintenance. So it's closer to what the assessor has, although it is carrying a higher tax load right now than the assessor's $7 rate would suggest. And so we're left with an NOI of 50,000 and capitalization rate. I know it says on my page 1 the year built was 1950. That shouldn't be there, but the adjustment for the year built should actually be changed to 0 or 1, because even though it's a late build, it's poor construction. The quality is poor and low, and we don't expect a long remaining economic life on it. As for actual comparables, again, this isn't the sort that you ever see on the investment market. We have a number of older buildings on page 37 that bear somewhat of a resemblance. The one on 848 Jubilee, which is an older house that was in use as an office and converted to retail, 8.04%. In this case, we had a retail use converted to office. And then some other ones of strip offices. Strangely enough, my office, I don't know why it's always in here because it did sell at 8.04%. And that's only 3 blocks north of the subject property. But it is a much better investment than the subject. The main value in this property is the land. And you're doing the income approach here, and but this building wouldn't sell for another office. It wouldn't sell for the actual building. It's a teardown. It would sell for its land value, and it's 18,000 square feet with C2 zoning. And the C2, and I'm just a little bit of a narrative here. The C2 equivalent is RMFM, which is 800 square feet per unit for developable space. So that would provide us with roughly 24 units in here, and it's going to be the value per unit that would set that sale price, or the value per square foot. And in this neighborhood, currently, it's in the neighborhood of $25 to $30 a square foot for land on Osborne. And there are, I can tell you, 4 sites, one across the street. There's the squash, the tennis, the winter club land, and then there's the pub, the plaza. And as well, there's one on Stradbrook, and they topped out at $30 a square foot for the land. So that puts this value up at no more than 550,000, maybe 600,000 on a good day. That's what has swayed my opinion of value, and I apologize that this is all verbal information. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, questions for the applicant?
So on page 3 of your report, and you've mentioned it already, the 470 River is only, would be the only comparable rent that would be within the neighborhood of subject property, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you say it was purpose built?
No, it was purpose built as a commercial rental units, not a conversion. The subject's a conversion. But it's also wood framed.
Yeah, because when I looked at it, and I did look at it, it was 1903 year build, residential conversion. Would that be a purpose build, or would it not be a purpose build?
Now you're testing my memory. I've inspected the place and appraised it in the past. So I remember the wood part. See, it wasn't set up as a residence. It was set up as a commercial operation. The way the hallways were set, in a house, you would have kind of like central hallways and rooms that go off them. This one was set up with a side stairwell.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I saw the side stairwell as
Yeah.
well. And the subject property is on the 3rd floor, correct? Not subject property, sorry, comparable property.
This comparable? No, this would be a lower level space. The upper levels are getting $4 and $6 rents. So this is one of the retail spaces. There's a couple of, there's this building and the one next door, which were twins of each other, and a variety of tenants. There's a smoke shop and I think a UPS shop.
Oh, because I did provide it as one of my rebuttal evidence, pictures of this particular property on 470 River, and there it does say it's a 3rd floor space. So if you want,
no, the 3rd is not really usable. It's storage, not storage. It's storage quality. This is the 1st and the 2nd that are
And you say that the value for subject property is the land, correct?
That's where its value lies, yes.
Yeah. And so would you agree with me that $25-30 per square foot that you brought is the lower end of the spectrum for land values there?
Well, yeah, that's it. Like the highest one we've seen, I believe, is the Stradbrook at 30. But when we're in the zone, there's it's not an overlay zone, but there's a couple of the sales that went through where they had their variances prior to sale, and they got higher density permitted. Now the old hotel was one of them because it has a very interesting design with parking that goes underneath the city lane. And prior to purchase, they did get their permission for a higher than typical density. So it hit a higher rate per square foot. But whereas the one across the street went to the permissible density of the zoning, and it, I think, came in at $24 a square foot. The Winter Club was, and again, had a higher density. It's about an acre of land, and they got that huge high tower. That's way more than they'd allowed to, but they got permission, so that drove the price up. But I think River, you're not going to get the permission for density because it's already characterized by low rises, and the ones I'm talking about had more unique locations. One located next to high rise, the other being a former hotel.
Oh, why? Yes, because have you seen have you seen any sales there that would be, let's say, in the range of $50 to $60 per square foot?
Well, I've seen one that was based on, a couple that were based on conditional approvals for higher density. So they were based on, and there's one I saw on Pembina Highway that was based on, first of all, an approved density, which was much higher than zoning would allow. And secondly, the vendor was a partner in the new firm, so I'm not relying on that one. There were a whole bunch of new developments in the Sterling Line area, and those went for $20 a foot, around 20 a foot, all of that land.
You're talking about, so you're, I guess, talking about the properties in the different areas, right? Now?
Yeah, there's some downtown ones that have gone for higher, but downtown already has a denser permissible use. There's very few restrictions, and an apartment is built on how many units you can put on the site. And this is C2 zone, which is the equivalent of RMFM, and they're limited to 800 square feet per unit. So with 18,000 square feet of land, it's 23 units that they would be allowed to develop.
So Rocky, the comparables, I guess, the examples you are bringing forward are not necessarily in the River Asper neighborhood, right?
Well, no, I know the one across the street was 24, and there's one down the street which hit a high mark of 30. And not on River, it was on Stradbrook.
Okay, within the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
but within the neighborhood, when I saw some 56s, I was just wondering if you saw those.
Well, no. I mean, years ago there was a really high sale of land that Safeway bought for their parking lot, and it was $100 a foot, but they needed it for parking, so that's called assemblage value. There was also an assemblage value at Confusion Corner where the owner of the new development office that went up purchased the money mark in front of them for assemblage value. So that exceeded those numbers, but that they're not based on market value. They're based on another project.
When was the last time you inspected such a property?
It may have been 2009.
Okay, so
No, I have not seen the renovations done by the lawyers.
So you haven't seen the renovation?
No, I observed it from the outside, and I could see that they kept the structural intact, and it looks like there was some additional walling for insulation, and I think they redid the decks, the flooring, and obviously, yes, the new mechanical equipment.
Okay, so they did do some upgrades to the building, correct?
Well, repairs and changes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I guess if I could just provide my rebuttal information and done with my questions. There you go.
Is this additional rebuttal information, Mr. Assessor?
This is rebuttal information in relationship to appellant's property, 470 River Road. So, does everybody have it open?
Yes.
Yeah, so this basically the first page there is, I guess, information from assessment and taxation website. It's land area only 4,964 square feet. It's 1903 built with 1970 effective age, so it's much older building. It has been, from the looks of it, from the looks of it, has been originally built as a residential and converted later and repurposed later for commercial use. It has side stairs that lead to the upper floors. And on the last page there, and I asked, I guess, appellant about it. The expert from the income and expense miller, it says that the 900 and the property 960 square feet is vacant, but it's on the third floor. Number 3 is to the left of the of that expert. So, on the information that was provided, that rent is $12.50 per square foot. Subject having being in, I guess, on the third floor in a walk-up style on the outside staircase would be much more inferior, and and again, when we look at subject property, we have main floor office, and we have much larger parcel lot, which would generate, which would, I guess nobody's arguing about it, larger parcel in that area would generate a lot more, has lots of value, and subject property also provides ample parking for customers. So that's my rebuttal in regards to which supports again our assessment and taxation's value per square foot. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, do you wish to address this rebuttal information?
No, I see what he's got it from, and I think the issue to bear in mind here, it's one of many rents, and 470 River is in what's called the Village. So it is a pedestrian-oriented neighborhood, and it's a wood frame construction. It's a superior location to the subject. So I think it should be expected to generate a higher rent. Nothing further to say on that.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater, I believe it's up to you for any questions for the applicant.
Yes. So you said you inspected this property in 2009?
I think the last time I was in there was in around 2009.
Were you there as a customer, or were you there?
Oh, no. Who was, I did work for who, and no, I had the run of the place.
Okay. Just earlier, you'd made the statement that the previous owner had made the statement that he had used
Yes,
reclaimed wood. Was this?
the original construction, yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, just for clarification.
I think he used the word packing crates and packing pallets and reclaimed wood.
Just for clarification, did you say you were changing your cap rate?
No.
Or is that your vacancy rate? I'm confused.
No, nothing really to change here. I think if you had to do this by valuation, I think what I wanted to say is that, like, I'm really running out of time in my career. So the office is preparing these and then I'm bringing it in and suffering the cross-examination. If I were to prepare this, I would have said that the highest and best use is land value, and I would have brought you land sales. It's a building that's near, that really doesn't have a great economic life to it. It's getting rent now, it's getting a use now, but the future is redevelopment. And I could tell you who the owner is, and you'd understand it was probably going to be for redevelopment, but then that would be betraying the confidence.
All my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Billinghurst, questions?
No, they've been answered. Thank you.
I think in fairness, you said that you probably would have treated this as land value rather than doing an income approach on it. But having said that, your cap rate that you've applied to it, do you still feel that that's appropriate for this type of development or improvement?
Well, I personally, if I was stuck with this as a valuation, this is just my opinion, I'm not defending the document. I would have gone with a slightly higher rent and a higher cap. I think you could generate a bit more income, but your cap's going to be higher. It could probably generate $13, $14, but then you want to be capping at 9% given the remaining economic life of it. Since you asked the question, I'm allowed to answer it, but otherwise I couldn't volunteer that. So that would be my take on it. And then because I see a short lifespan for this, I see a development occurring like everywhere else on River. We have a few projects that we know of that are happening on older buildings that have reached the end of their life, and there's a lot of demand for multifamily. And there are people paying, now I don't know if you can hit 30,000 a door. So 23 units at 30 a door is 690,000. That's kind of high. You might see that if it was a bit closer to the river. I think the highest we've really seen on a clean deal is probably 40 a foot for Riverland. 40 a door, 40,000 a door per unit. That's usually the way they're sold. That's the high end. The low end is going to be 20,000 a door, and based on the developable number of units. So that's putting the range at, at 460,000. But there's probably a buyer out there who'll pay 30,000 a door. And if it went condo, maybe a few $1,000s higher, because you're going to get your money out quicker with a condo. That's why I mentioned that there was the $30 sale down the street, because it went condo, and with that, the return is quicker and higher instead of lower and steady. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, desire for summation, Mr. Assessor?
I think, for this one, it's been discussed very well. I still stand that the value should be where the city has it. That's basically it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Well, thank you. We didn't have a great depth of support on the rental rate as opposed to the other properties you've heard today, and that's just the truth. The assessor has a number that are in the area, and you'll note that the mean is under $14, and there's one that exceeds all the rest. In our world, an outlier is an outlier. It's not the one that you pick to set your value on. You've got to look at the whole market. And the other outlier at the other end is 925. But that outlier is in a building where there's other rents at 11 and 12. So that gives you an idea that the rental rate you should see in this neighborhood is between 11 and 15.50. That's the real range. And we have it pegged at 12, and the assessor has it at 1637. That's difference number one. Difference number two is capitalization. In that respect, our position is, I think, much more obvious in that a 6.7% capitalization rate for a property that probably has a short remaining economic life is just not appropriate. It will not be an office for a 35-year span. It just can't last that long. And it will be redeveloped more than likely. So on the present income, you would cap it higher. And apologize for not doing the land sales on it. But that really, in my mind, and this is the personal opinion, that does give us a high end closer to 690 as a value, being $30,000 per door for 23 units. I did not bring you any evidence to support that. Thank you.
I thank you. Okay, gentlemen, I thank you both for your presentations today. And as mentioned earlier, the orders will be out in due course by registered mail. And I thank you, and I will call the hearing to a close.